Hey everyone, I'm your host Natalie Bodie. On the show today is an NFL running back who made a name for himself with the LA Chargers, leading the league in touchdowns in 2021 and 2022. Since then, he's signed with and currently plays for the Washington Commanders. Please welcome the one and only Austin Ekeler to the show.
Yeah, I was born in Lincoln, so I was just born there. I actually grew up in Colorado, but my mom was living in Nebraska during the time. So,
do you remember anything in Nebraska? When did you move?
Actually, we have a lot of family back in Nebraska, so that's actually like crazy thing is during vacations, like my favorite vacation is going back to Nebraska. And yeah, what's in Nebraska? Cornfields and turkeys. But also a lot of private lakes.
Okay.
So there's a lot of sand pits out there, and then they turn the sand pits into private lakes. And so I have some cousins that live on private lakes, bass fishing, boating, tubing, all that stuff. Great time.
So you're a country boy then, really, at heart. People don't eat in Colorado. That's got to be the middle of nowhere.
It's tough to say at heart. I grew up in the country, but myself, I am not necessarily a country boy.
But you just said you're hot, like you like fishing. And
I grew up fishing. I grew up doing a lot of that. Yes.
You don't claim it.
No, it was one of those stages in life where it's like I went through that. I did it. I enjoyed it. That was great. Yeah. But now I moved on to a new stage, and I feel like this stage is more defining of who I am.
Yeah. You've evolved out of it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you are in a situation when you're younger where you're molded by your situation, you know, your parents, your location, things like that. And then you blossom out of that and hopefully can kind of choose where you go in life, and, you know, that's who you become. You know?
Who introduced you to football and Eaton?
Ooh. So grew up doing pretty much all sports. My mother was the biggest proponent of, hey, pushing into doing as much as you can. So soccer, baseball, basketball, wrestling, all of it. Football was obviously in there too. And I remember, I still remember my first ever football play, actually. It was a flag football play. And I was playing right guard. And this is before I even knew any of like the rules of football. And I'm a little guy, I don't know, 5, 6 years old. And we run a pass play. And so it's set hike and it's pass play, go catch the ball, right? Right guard, I'm going out for the pass, and I catch the ball from the receiver and score a touchdown, and never played right guard after that again. So that was my first ever football play.
All this time you just think you just did your thing, you're having a blast, and then... Absolutely.
It was for me growing up, it was definitely my favorite sport and continued to be as I got older, and it was one that I would go to like camps for in the summers. And continue just to develop, and it was the one that I found the most just comfort in. And it was cool because I grew up in a tiny town, Eaton, Colorado, and my group of friends that I grew up with, we went to kindergarten all the way through K through 12 together. So we was the same group. We'd all go play basketball, baseball. We'd all just travel in a pack. So we were pretty solid. You know, the camaraderie's there. I knew everyone's parents. Everyone knew everybody. So it was a good time.
You were playing with your brothers then, basically, like on the field. All these guys you've known forever. Is there a big sports culture there? Because just saying that, I wouldn't think off the bat that sports would be huge.
Well, driving into Eaton, Colorado, there's onion fields, corn fields, and then there's a little town with like 4,000 people there with one stoplight. It's like one of those towns you go through, like,
pass right through.
Maybe got to stop and get gas type of thing.
Right.
It's growing a little bit. They got a hotel out here now, and 2 stoplights. So shout out to Eaton, Colorado. But you know, for us growing up, yeah, it was really tight knit group. It was awesome to be a part of this little tiny town because it was a tiny town, but the town embraced the sports. So the culture was really great around, like Thursday night or Friday night under the lights is packed. I can still hear my mom out there, run, Austin, run! Like she's yelling, or basketball was her sport. Move your feet, move your feet. My little brother, he knows that one.
She was a collegiate athlete too, right?
Yeah, she played in college. She played at Colorado Springs. She played Division II. Yes.
I had some family that played there too.
So yeah, she was playing basketball out there.
So I read that in high school you were a 4-year starter.
Where at?
Right?
No, I only started 2 years.
In high school, only 2 years?
I started 2 years.
Oh, they're giving you 4 years on your wiki. Over 5,200 rushing yards. That sound about right to you?
Something like that. Yeah.
71 touchdowns, 39 in your senior year alone, though.
Yes.
You went off.
So I had like a progression. It was like an exponential curve of kind of going freshman and JV. Actually, it was really fun. My freshman year, again, that same group that kind of went with us, we finally got to high school. We were already really good. And so we had 2 games. They put us on, a core of us on C team, and then they put us on JV. So we got 2 games a week. So we say, all right, the C team game is the easy game. Then we got to go play the hard game on Thursdays and play the JV game. And so I did that my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, I was like a special teams hybrid type guy. And then junior and senior year started on offense, in high school.
So you had an incredible season, and the attention not really coming for you. Is it because you think the location of where you're at?
I think that was really my first taste. Let me back up. My recruiting process was my first taste of like reality. Like, you can go put in all the work, you can have all the numbers, you did everything, you went to the camps, I'm sending out film to everybody,
right.
I'm doing everything. I had, I went crazy, 43 touchdowns, 2,000, 400 yards. I'm averaging 10 yards a carry. So I'm averaging, there I go, I'm scoring 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. And come to recruitment, it's crickets, right? It's crickets. No Division I teams came and talked to me. I had a D1 AA come and talk to me, and they wanted me to come out as a preferred walk-on because they wanted to see where I could fit in. They're like, we're not sure about your size. You're not the fastest, so we'll see where you can fit in. And it was definitely, a punch in the face of reality of like, wow, you could think you've done all this, but that's not necessarily what the results that you're going to get. And so ended up having a couple Division IIs come talk to me again, maybe play corner, maybe play safety. They're all trying to switch me over. I've always played running back, always, never not. And so I'm like, no, I want to play running back. And I finally had Western Colorado come to me. They're like, hey, our senior running back just graduated. You can come compete for running back up here. And I actually had some high school buddies that were playing up there as well. And so I'm like, hey, let's go play running back. Let's go get a business degree and go hang out with the boys.
So you go to Western Colorado. What was that experience like?
Wow. So I went from one small school to a small town, but just, about 5,000 feet higher in elevation because it's up in the mountains in Colorado. And it was awesome for the time I was there, but it's extremely limited as far as just the growth potential. If you want to kind of use your business education, if you want to be in agriculture, stuff like that is okay. Football, like any mainstream sport, was not necessarily embraced by the town like it was in my little town of Eaton, Colorado. But that's because tourism ran the city. So you're either in services or you're doing some type of outdoor rec guiding thing, or you're a farmer up there. Like those were the main jobs that kept that city alive. And so again, my mom's still, run, Austin. She's still the loudest one in the stands up in college. It was like a bigger high school. It was like 2,500 students up there. So I pretty much knew everyone by my second and third year on campus. But again, it was intimate. It helped me stay focused, that's for sure, because there's not a lot of distractions, a lot of time ice fishing, a lot of time, on the river, which was great, and a lot of time in the weight room in the library. That was kind of my time that I really locked in. Like I really, really locked in after I had kind of, in my opinion, fell flat coming out of high school. It was like, okay, I got to make sure that I'm doing more. I'm doing as much as I can to put myself in a position where I have a bigger opportunity. I thought that was going to be in business because I'm going to a school that had never had anyone go to the NFL. So I'm like, okay, let me lock in on my education so I can get an opportunity in the business world, specifically the oil and gas. I was going to school for energy management. That was really my focus. And I remember watching so many motivational videos when I was a freshman. I remember typing on Facebook quotes about, if I go back and read them, I'm like, I'm proud of that guy, but it's kind of cringy. So really just came into a period where I was able to focus in a small town and really lock in on my craft of football and school.
So during this time, you still think you're going to graduate and get a normal job like everybody else? You're thinking that you're going to use your degree. At what point did you realize I could be a part of the NFL?
So I had an internship after my junior year. Went to Noble Energy, oil and gas opportunity. Had a job offer. Crushed my internship. Was great. And D2, you can have an internship. I don't have to stay up over the summer. You can actually go get a job. And so that's what I did, and had an opportunity. And the same summer, my coach comes to me and says, hey, Jazz Baines, he's like, hey, Austin, you have some scouts that are actually interested in asking you questions or asking questions about you. And that's the first time I ever heard about scouts. There's never a scouts. We don't have a pro day or anything like that at our school. And so I'm like what are they saying? I don't even watch the NFL. I grew up watching bass fishing, bull riding, that type of stuff. And so at that moment, I really started to like lock in, okay, and listen to like all of the different things about pro days and try to figure out the ecosystem of football. And that's when it kind of became a reality for me. And then my senior year, I had scouts at every single one of my practices, and they were trying to figure out what was wrong with me. They're like, why is he at Western Colorado? Like, is he a knucklehead? Is he bad? Like, is he getting in trouble? Like, is he at bad grades? And he's just a terrible person. And it wasn't, none of those were checking. Like, okay, like he seems, all right, maybe he was just truly, missed and maybe slipped through the cracks, or maybe developed really well out here in Western. So, checked all the boxes, and then that's when it really became a reality, is when I signed my agent. It's like, okay, now I'm going to have representation, so this is actually a real opportunity.
So you become the school's all-time leader in rushing yards, correct?
Correct.
And after that, it's actually sinking in that this could be your career. So what did the draft prep look like for you?
So actually, I dropped out before I graduated after my senior year because, again, I was at this time in my mind like, I am putting 100% of my effort into this thing. I'm going to do everything I possibly can, and there's not going to be anything that I could have done. Like that was going to be everything. You're going to get everything that I possibly can put into this. So dropped out, and I went and trained for my pro day in Denver, and I would basically spend half the day there, go home, chill, relax, play video games, wake up, do the same thing, and just kept doing that for whatever, 2 months straight until the pro day came. So I really just decided that this is going to be the most important thing in my life right now, and ended up crushing my pro day. Even though my little brother beat my numbers, shout out to Wyatt sitting in the back. Crushed the pro day, and had a lot of teams that were like, okay, we're interested in this guy. Like, let's, probably not going to draft you, but definitely something that we're interested to come in and be a part of camp. So when it comes to draft day, do you kind of have an idea? All right, my opportunity might come after this, or are you still kind of waiting? What's that time period like for you? So I had a conversation with my agent at the time, and he's like, look, because of where you're at, there's just not as much comparable film because you went to a Division II as compared to someone who played at a better talent level. So they're probably like, hey, if you're at the same level as a guy from like LSU, and they're like, both of these guys can kind of go, 7th round undrafted, they would probably take the guy from LSU just because there's more on that person. You're probably going to be a free agent, which isn't a bad thing because we can kind of pick and choose where we want to go. So that's what we did. We wanted to go to Green Bay first because they had 0 running backs on the roster. So, all right, every running back's trying to go there because they want to make the team and have the best odds. So that didn't end up working out because they ended up drafting 3 running backs that year. And then the next one on the list was the Chargers, and that was because new coaching staff, they had Melvin Gordon, who was kind of the staple first-round pick, and everyone else was kind of younger backs behind them, so opportunity to go compete in that room. And so they called about halfway through the last round, and we're like, hey, if Austin doesn't get picked up in the next few picks, we'll take him. And so I already knew before the draft was over, okay, I'm going to be in a camp somewhere. So your first NFL training camp, people talk about the transition, everything's a lot faster. Coming from D2, how did you make that jump? What was it like? Yeah, it's definitely fast. I remember I had a play where I tried to like outrun to the sideline and like run it down the sideline and got caught, and immediately it was met with, this is not college. Coach is coming to me, he's like, you get vertical as soon as you can because you're not going to outrun these guys to the sideline and be able to turn the corner. It's like you could in college and high school. And so you just learn the small details of how to be efficient, and you're really raw in the beginning. And for me, I was extremely raw, but I could put it all on special teams, and that's where I actually got my opportunity. Was special teams is like that type of play where you don't have to have as many mechanics. It's just effort, want to, and willpower. Like, can you go do this? Go make this tackle. Don't let this guy block, or don't let this guy make the tackle if you're blocking, things like that. So fully immersed myself into understanding the details, understanding the philosophies of the coaches, and again, took that same mindset that I used getting into training camp, going through pro day, and brought it to OTAs as well in camp. And so I was 6th string on the depth chart, and 0 6-stringers ever make the squad. I was going to say, I read that. I didn't even know it went that far. To be honest with you, I mean, it's just more credit to you. We have one running back on the field at a time. Yeah. And so I would get like 2 reps, maybe it'd be like first string would go, second string go. All right, like, you know, the rookie team can go. But then I would have other running backs that would get those reps, and so I get 1 or 2. So most of my reps came on scout team, and I remember being stressed out of my mind because I was like, I was doing my job, I was where I was supposed to. I wasn't doing anything like over the top, but I felt like my opportunities were so limited that I did do well with them, but I didn't see any progression. You know, like in my mind, I'm like, oh, I got to move up the depth chart. I got to get to number 3, or I'm going to get it cut. And I didn't realize that that's not how the NFL worked. Like, they're always evaluating you, regardless of where you're at in the depth chart. And so it was definitely the most stressful offseason for sure.
So do you have a lot of self-doubt during that time? Are you having glimmers of, I can do this, I can make it?
I think I had so much focus of do the right thing, study, do extra, that I didn't really have opportunities for self-doubt. And I think it was also masked because I didn't necessarily know if I could play at this level. So I was still limit testing myself, so to speak, where I'm putting everything in. And if the best version of me can make it, great. But if the best version of me that I felt like I put out there couldn't, like, it's okay. I'll go take this energy and do something else. And it ended up working. But yeah, there wasn't necessarily any doubt. It was more so a focus of just making sure that this is everything.
So to go from undrafted to within 3 years getting over a $20 million contract, I mean, it's remarkable in and of itself that you were 6th string and then this is able to happen. What's your greatest separator? Why do you think you were able to do that? Was it your work ethic? Was it your mindset? Was it the fact you had another plan?
The greatest, wow.
Doesn't happen a lot.
There's a few different factors that I think carry a ton of weight. Some you can control, some you can't control. One being just my body composition and just me getting through, you know, all of my stuff healthy, being able to be in camp and actually perform, things like that. That's something that the game wears and tears on your body. So people come in at different places. So coming in pretty much relatively good was one, check that box. And then my mindset, I feel like, really separated me. I think that was the biggest gap. If you were to measure things, is how I approached the game. It wasn't just a game to me. It was much more than that. It was a whole lifestyle shift of my trajectory of my life, of going and working in the business world to having the opportunity to kind of steer my own boat for my life. And I took it extremely seriously, still do, and I think that's still one of the things that's kept me in the league, is that this is not just a game, and like I know it is for a lot of guys. I said that one time, and I was like, "This isn't a game." And I remember one of my teammates is like looking at me like, "Yeah, like we're so far different in the mental focus and the mental kind of." Attention to detail that I had to the game, of just making sure that I'm where I need to be. I have a standard for myself, and I understand that this isn't just a game, it's a launch pad for so many other things. And I'm still super entrepreneurial. And so I think that's where it all stems from too, because when you're in that scrappy entrepreneurial type of way, like, you're trying to find a way no matter what. And so I still have that, and that will never leave me. That's been the biggest differentiator, mindset.
Is that just something you've always had? It's intrinsic for you? Did someone instill that in you?
No, I think that started when I ended up at Western Colorado, and I was like, okay, I put a lot of work in to get some great numbers, but really didn't get the opportunity that I thought I would. I got to work harder. And I think it was also a product of being in a situation where there wasn't a lot of distractions. Like, it was Western Colorado, you can lock in here, like 2-to-1 guy to girl ratio, not a lot of other things going on. Parties aren't really like that. So it was like library, workout. And so like I mentioned, I was literally just ingesting so much like motivational content, educational content, and just continuing to kind of build up that type of part of my life. And that really has become who I am. I feel like that's kind of the energy that I want to put out. That's push forward, be the best you, always progress, always looking forward, always trying to get to the next level, because that's where I find the most fulfillment now. And it's just continued to blossom into kind of the man I've become.
You mentioned limit testing yourself. I think that's interesting, because you at one point weren't even sure if you could play in the league. And then obviously not only do you play, you excel. At what point did you realize, not only can I do this, but I can do this at a very high level?
When I was doing it is when I realized it. I think the best part of limit testing is you don't know how far you can go until you get there. And then you're like, okay, like how much can I sustain now? that's the name of the game in the NFL. You always want to continue to progress, but then as you progress, you have to sustain your progression as well. And I didn't know until I got there. It was one of these things where I had an opportunity. I took advantage of it. It was on special teams early on. I got another opportunity because I had some success and I was able to be trusted on the field, continue to build and snowball. It wasn't just like all of a sudden overnight. It looks like overnight success to everyone else.
Right.
Like, oh, I got you on my fantasy. I'm betting on you. Like, you're crushing it. But it was like, yeah, you weren't betting on me when I was making tackles on punt and trying to get on the dang team, But for me as an internal, my internal being, it's like, okay, it's been a progression. And, I got to the point where, I'm leading, the league in touchdowns 2 years in a row, all-purpose yards, things like that. And I really didn't know. And I think even just looking at life in general, like, I feel like if you're not limit testing yourself, this is just my perspective, if you're not limit testing yourself, I think you're doing yourself a disservice to your life, because there's so much more out there that you could potentially get to, but you don't know unless you're continuing to push down that path,
You brought this up, so I've got to ask you. The sports betting, the fantasy parlays.
Yeah.
You get those DMs all the time?
Oh, yeah. That's the most common reaction I get.
Just all men in your DMs like, hey, last leg, you didn't hit your over rushing. Like,
DMs, even in person, is the most common thing that I get. It's not like, hey, I'm a huge Commanders fan, or hey, I'm a huge Chargers fan. It's, hey, I had you in fantasy. Like, probably 10 to 1. 10 to 1. Yeah. And it's like, oh, fantasy people. Like, even today in the gym, there's a lot of people that come in.
They're approaching you in the gym?
So I go to Dragon's Lair. Shout out to, Flex out here. And it's a hot spot out here, so there's a lot of tourists coming in and trying out the gym. And so I always love it, though, because it's a first impression for somebody to meet me. Yeah. And just taking that 5 seconds to do a picture, say what's up, make them feel great is something that they'll remember. They'll be like, that would be a cool moment for them. I had someone that said to me this one time, they say, treat normal people like celebrities and treat celebrities like normal people. And I was like, that stuck. And so every time I have a first impression with someone that's like a fan, I'm like, yes, like, let's crush this pick. You
don't get anyone angry though, like, hey, you didn't hit this last night? Because we had Aljamain Sterling here yesterday, and he told me he's almost gotten in like physical fights with people. You
can't take the bait. People are gonna bait you so hard. Oh, they're gonna be in here like, oh, I need 2 yards from you. Like, I have no time for these knuckleheads that are in my shit.
It's so stupid.
You can't lean into that. You got to realize these people are emotional. These people put their money on that. Yeah, they treating you like a pawn, but it's this game we play. You're in entertainment. There's gonna be an ugly side of entertainment, and for us, it's injuries and sports betting.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. You mentioned 21 and 22, though, and you lead the league in touchdowns. It sounds like that wasn't a something clicked. That was just the culmination of all of your work over time, and then it just met, and that's the type of season you had.
It's an accumulation. There's timing that plays into it, 100%. I think the NFL is actually – a lot of it is a timing as far as you as an individual player, when it comes to your contract, when it comes to your opportunity, when it comes to your coaching staff, when it comes to the draft and what team you're on. All of these things play into the picture of what your opportunity is going to look like and how your career can actually progress or stand still depending on what team you're on. And so for me, we had been coming into a situation where Melvin Gordon was holding out. I had signed a contract. I was signed as the running back. Justin Herbert was drafted to us. We have a stud quarterback, and we have Joe Lombardi, a great offensive coordinator, coming in. And it was kind of this timing for me. It happened to be also when I was in year 5, 6, kind of my prime of understanding the league, getting into my kind of peak physique as well. And so it all kind of came together at the right point. And so timing, yes, definitely plays a part of it, but you have to set up the timing by always continuing to be ready. Because if you miss it, then that window's gone. But I was 100% ready and signed at the right moment to take advantage of the opportunity and continue to put out some production and continue to make all the fantasy people happy for sure for 2 years anyway.
Well, when you think of your time with the Chargers, what are you most proud of?
So many different things. I really think making the team, because I think that was the kind of kickoff to that limit testing thing we talked about for myself, where, okay, I'm pushing the envelope. I'm continuing to push the capabilities and the expectation that I had for myself. So that is kind of the tip that led to everything else, the first domino, so to speak. So
now with the Commanders, obviously ended up leaving LA. What was your take on Once you made that transition and having to deal with that business side of the NFL mentally, what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, again, one of these things about timing. You know, I'm coming off my second year of leading the league in touchdowns, things like that, and I'm going to the Chargers like, hey, let's get an extension, like strike while the iron's hot. I had one more year left in my contract, so they didn't have to move anywhere. They say no. I'm like, okay, let me go find a trade. Let me get out of here. Let me go try to at least take advantage of the time while I've been, you know, in the top of the past couple of years. They're like, okay, great, but we want a first-round pick for you. I'm like, oh, so you don't want to pay me, but you want a first-round pick. I'm like, okay. So I learned a little bit about leverage, you know, and being in position to negotiate things like that. Again, timing. And so for myself, I was in a position where I didn't really have any leverage. So, okay, I'm going to go play on my last year of my contract. That's fine. The year stalls out. We had win like 5 games. We suck. So obviously was not good for me being a free agent. End up linking up with my old coach, my head coach, Anthony Lynn, who I had all my success early on with. He's with the Commanders now. Boom, we get that deal signed. I tell Mel, my wife, and it's like, it was like 2 weeks. Hey, we're going to the Commanders. And we leave in 2 weeks. So uplift everything. We'd never been to the East Coast. Go out to the East Coast, find a spot. And I didn't know anything about the Commanders at the time. I knew they weren't that great the year before, you know, just like we were. I think they won 4 games that year before. And I knew, you know, the ownership was transferring over from old to new head coach, basically no quarterback at the time. So, hey, looking to draft a quarterback. When we got to the roster, it was like 60 new guys on the roster, so it was just people from all over the place kind of getting thrown in. But then Dan Quinn ends up being the head coach and really, I think, puts us in a position to make that season the way it was, and even just make that transition the way it was because, you know, when we're at work, I've been around people, not for me, the Chargers have always been great, I thought, but I've been around guys that have like, dreaded going into work, like I hate this culture, things like that. So it actually ended up turning out amazing, even if you don't look at the win, just the culture in the building to be around, and we looked forward to it, and it was awesome.
How do you describe that culture? Because there's so much excitement with the Commanders right now. I mean, from the new ownership, coaches with Jaden Daniels.
For sure. And I think it starts, I mean, you got to have players. You got to have players that can absolutely go out there and play. But when you're talking culture, there's things that you can't really coach in the NFL, and culture is one of those things. It has to be brought in. Typically, it's with certain head coaches that you know what you're going to get. I didn't know anything about Dan Quinn, but what I did learn about him is he coaches brotherhood. Like I had to send in 5 different pictures because I had to tell a story when I get there, the first OTAs, a 5-minute story about who I am, where I'm from, like that type of thing, so players can know players type of thing.
Wow. Did everybody have to do that?
Yeah, we're all about to do that.
That's super cool. That's super cool.
We're doing stuff like that. I mean, we have family that comes and watches our practice, family that comes out we'll have little food trucks that family has to come out, and we're eating dinner together, eating lunch together. It is about, hey, we are here. It's not just you as players, it's your support staff as well. Bring everyone in because we want to feel like this is an awesome place. And the way he vocalized, it doesn't feel like coach player. It feels like we're a group, like we're all on the same team. And you know, he comes in, he's got a hat backwards, dapping everybody up, like DQ. You know, sometimes you walk down, I've walked down, you know, hallways, and head coach is there, like, hey coach, you know, it's like you know, like yes sir type of energy. And with DQ, it's so opposite, where it's like, you know, he's probably looking to dap you up first and hug you and hey, how's your family? Like knows everything about everyone, like studies all of us. He's asking me about my app and stuff, and I'm like, my God, you know. So just those little things go so far when you're creating a culture, and what it does is it ignites people to want to come into work, and they're like, yes, like I can't wait, like to go in, see the guys, be around the guys. And it's something, like I said, can't necessarily be, you know, kind of brought in, and it has to be authentic. It has to be authentic to the people that you bring in, whether that's coach and things like that. You can't just turn it on and try to do it. So it's been great. The culture's been awesome.
You've played with several quarterbacks, but I've got to ask you about Jaden, because his season, it was absolutely incredible. And what everyone always keys in on is they say that he shows no emotion. He's always even keel. What other attributes do you think make him the type of player that he is?
Dude loves football, but also is super competitive at just everything. And he's going to talk trash in the locker room, stuff like that. But it's insanely competitive. Like he got this little group that he's with, some of the younger guys. They'll come in, you know, that like game where you like look up or turn to the side, stuff like that. They're always playing that. He's always got his basketball thing going on. So he's always competing at something. He's always messing with somebody that you guys don't see on the outside. So just it's like a kid in the candy store when he's at the facility getting to compete, being around the guys. And again, I think that's awesome because as a quarterback, when you are not closed off to everybody else, which I've had quarterbacks, in the past like that, where it's a little bit more like they're in their own little sphere and they're like, okay, it's hard to relate, come, hey, what's up, man? It's almost like the coach kind of player type environment. I know even with Philip, he had been there so long, and he'd been there year 16 when I came in, so it's hard for me to relate to that. But having a quarterback, even Justin come in, he took him a while to develop, to kind of come out of his shell a little bit and be into that leadership role. I feel like Justin has come in and has really just kind of embraced hanging out with the guys type of thing. And I think a lot of that goes back to the culture, though, of Dan Quinn and the environment that he set up for us to actually have that type of interaction.
So Jaden, it seems really with him, everything you're saying makes sense. He could be loose. He could be the best version of himself. He never seemed uncomfortable. And that was seeing a rookie play. Is that what you saw every day?
For sure.
This kid just has it. The game isn't too fast for him. He just immediately was a piece that fit.
Straight up. He came in and you never know what you're going to get. It's like rolling the dice with quarterbacks. Yeah. And with Jaden, he was just to the point, killer mindset, throws a pick, doesn't matter, throws a touchdown. We'll do a fist pump, and that's what you got from him. We're getting our ass kicked. He's making sure everyone's got good spirit. We're whooping ass. He's still the same guy. So he's a unique guy. He really is, and I'm excited to be back with him, being his backfield buddy again.
So with your position specifically, I feel like the running back position has evolved a lot, and people place different value on it. The perspective changes with it. What's your perspective on how it's evolved and kind of the mindset surrounding it?
The running back position evolves with the runner. Mm-hmm. The running back position evolves with the runner. What type of runner do you have? Do you have a Derrick Henry? Do you have a Chris McCaffrey? Do you have an Austin Ekeler? Who is your running back? What are their attributes? What is your team going to be built for based off of your offensive line and your coordinator and your quarterback? And so I think that comes down to what type of success you're going to have in that running back room. I remember early on for me, again, coming into timing and placement, I'm with Phillip Rivers. He's not a mobile guy. He can't run. He's not going to be able to scramble out. He's going to look for checkdowns right away. Oh, well, if we have a running back that can catch the ball a lot, that's going to be probably a pretty good situation for him. Oh, so I was in that situation. I catch the ball in the backfield all the time. Phillip's in trouble, ball. Austin, now I get to get an opportunity. I get a run. And so perfect kind of scenario of what runner do you have, what quarterback, what situation, what's your team built around, And so if you have a runner who's dynamic, you might change some things for them. If you have a runner that is, solid, you might not change things for them, but you're going to use them in a way that, hey, is best for them. If not, it's going to be, they're trying to get rid of you or trying to bring in someone else. So that's how I would say the running back position is and has never not been like that. It's always evolving because we're all so different. Because you can sit Derrick Henry right now and he's going to look like a mountain next to me. And you're like, dang, those guys play the same position. Yeah, we do. But again, this is a position that whatever you bring to the table, if you can make it work, they're going to play you.
So Saquon ends up winning a Super Bowl this year,
yes,
following getting let go by the Giants. When you see that he is leaving New York and they're letting him go, what goes through your mind when you see that transaction?
I hope he makes them pay and make them regret it. Because he is one of those dynamic players that can 100% make an impact. And this is what I've been saying when I got the running backs together I was 2 or 3 years ago now when they were franchising Saquon, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, and basically we got together and this was a scenario. We had our top guys that should have been getting new money, just like every other position was seeing new money. The cap is going up. These guys should have been next on getting new money. And they put a cap on them because basically I think they were trying to artificially kind of dampen the market right now. Hey, let's put these guys in a position where this next year, because my group was coming up on our third contract, it was me, Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, Kamara, a lot of us that are coming up. So the market was about to be flooded with a lot of talent. Derrick Henry was going to be a free agent as well. And basically we were in a position we were stuck because the franchise tag sucks. In any player, it puts you get to play for 1 year. You just had a great year. Great. We're going to pay you. You don't get to negotiate that. And it's a 1-year deal. So if you get hurt, sorry after that. Basically, the thing that came out of that is the thing we can do is just continue to make an impact. That's the biggest thing we can do is go out there and show these guys that, hey, we 100% can make an impact on the field. And Saquon was one of those guys who went out there and did that. So I was so proud of him for doing that. And Christian has been doing the same thing. It's the only thing we can do. What can we do is continue just to play at a high level because the numbers and the impact won't lie.
For you, I think so many people don't understand all the ventures that you do outside of football and how many other things you're involved in. When you think about life after football, what do you want that to look like?
Yeah, a lot of my things that I've been involved in after or outside of football have been really community building or serving a community. And that's where I'll be. I'll definitely be in one of those two categories, either building communities or serving some big community. And that's kind of where my projects sit right now. The one that I'm most proud of, well, I have two, but the one that I'm most excited about right now is my fantasy football charity leagues. And so I've been raising money for my foundation with fantasy football for the last 3 years. And now this is the first year I'm expanding it out to other guys. And so I think the most we raised one year is like $40,000. You know, we ran like a few leagues. It's super easy. Basically, I donate prizes to a charity league. People can buy in by donating to my charity, and they get to compete for those prizes. Signed jerseys. There's like a $5,000 tier. I'll fly you out to the game. If you make the playoffs, you get dinner with me before the game type of thing. So I would love to continue to expand on that and also bring it to the point where, are you familiar with My Cause, My Cleats?
Yes.
So we do My Cause, My Cleats as a fundraiser, which is us auctioning off our shoes. But I would love to propose to the NFL and maybe even a provider of fantasy sports that, hey, I would love to do fantasy leagues to raise money for the guys across the league because it gets people more involved. Guys can donate prizes for these leagues. People can buy in at a lower price point as opposed to one pair of shoes. They can buy in for a $250 league, which goes to that person's charity of choice or foundation, and they can compete for some signed merch or a signed jersey or some type of memorabilia that's a little bit more interactive than just someone's shoes. So I would love to get that kind of implemented in the league over the next few years. So again, really serving people and just continue to build stuff.
Last question for you, 2 parts to it. What made you want to start your foundation, and how can people support it?
Yeah, I wanted to start my foundation because I felt like even though maybe I didn't have the best resources available at Eaton, Colorado, I still had them. And so what I wanted to do was implement resources into communities where they were basically unusable. For example, washers and dryers in Watts, California. The number 2 reason kids weren't going to school at these elementary schools, didn't have a lot of clean clothes, living in assisted living with no washers and dryers or out of their car. So now the families could come to the school and wash their clothes. Or weight rooms. Weight rooms has been a big one for me. I feel like I learned a lot from being in the weight room. That's kind of like my sanctuary. Taught me a ton of transferable skills. Football equipment, schooling equipment, really, again, tangible resources. So it's EkelerFoundation.org is where you can find us if you want to see some of our projects and you want to jump in and continue to make our communities great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Austin. We appreciate the time. Excited to see all you do on and off the field in the future. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.